Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kendrick. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Football is here, and oh my gosh, so much fun, so much to talk about. Well, at least maybe not for this show necessarily. With this show, I wanted to just talk about football, but there's some other more important things that I do need to discuss, but we will get into some of the football games. But before we get into that, I woke up this morning and I look out the window and there's smoke everywhere. The West Coast has been engulfed in smoke. There's wildfires all over the place. America is literally on fire, especially on the West Coast. And at least all this damage is all because of a gender reveal. Can we all just agree? Your baby's gender is not worth thousands of trees. It is not worth hundreds of people's homes. It's not worth it. Your kid's gender is not that important. Alright, so next time you want to do a gender reveal, let's not use explosives. Let's do like what Kirk Cousins did, and that's throw a freaking beanbag and just have it explode. Something like that, you know? Can we do something that doesn't damage the environment? Can we do something that doesn't throw everybody's life into a tizzy? 2020 is already hard enough. Now we have to deal with smoke everywhere. I have now even more of a reason to wear a mask if I go outside. The air quality is awful. It literally smells like smoke outside. This is not fun. This is not fun at all. I don't know if you are currently dealing with smoke in your area, but if you are, then I guess you understand what it is I'm talking about. I literally woke up, looked outside, and the sky is like a light tan. This is not normal. This is bad. It is so ridiculous. But anyway, so we've got some stuff to talk about today. I want to get into some Dak Prescott. I want to talk some Texans Chiefs. I want to talk a little bit more about that game because they showed a sign of unity and there was some booing that occurred during the game. I know that there have been conflicting reports about it. No. I've seen the videos. There was booing. I've seen individual videos from people at the game. There was booing. And then I want to get into some of my takeaways overall from the football weekend. I want to talk about a few different teams, talk about what I saw from them. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into this first topic. So, it was National Suicide Prevention Day on the 10th. And of course, it is the time for everybody to post all the numbers that you can call if you need help and to raise awareness because mental illness and depression have been things that have been stigmatized for so many years, and still to this day there are people out there that don't fully understand it. There's still people out there that think it's all in your head and they tell people it's all in their head, and then of course that is exactly what you don't want to do because then that is what drives people to ultimately take their life or to feel even worse about themselves, to not go and get the help. This is a day where of all days, you wouldn't expect there to be football drama. I would have never expected there to be football drama on a day like National Suicide Prevention Day. But unfortunately there was. So Dak Prescott, he came out and he talked about some of his struggles and what he's had to deal with during 2020. And he stated that he had started battling some feelings he's never had before. It was getting to the point where he would wake up and he just didn't have the energy to go and work out. And he basically wouldn't leave his bed. He wouldn't leave his house. He was getting he was feeling depressed because of quarantine and because of COVID and because of the fact that he had to stay inside, he had to social distance, that was getting to him. Eventually, his brother ended up taking his life. And during this year of all times especially, I mean, my heart goes out to Dak. When I heard the news of that happening, I felt so bad for him. That's terrible. I've never had a family member commit suicide, but I did have one of my best friends commit suicide when I was back in high school, so I understand a little bit of it. It's shocking. It's shocking to know that someone who was so close to you, you'll literally never see again. And so we talked about how then that was getting to him and how that made him realize even more about like the struggles of mental health, and that made him go and talk to people about it. That made him go and get some help for it. And this is the kind of thing in which everybody should hear it and then just wrap their arms around Dak and thank Dak for coming out about it. Because whether it's fair or not, athletes have a lot more placed on their shoulders. Their words mean a lot more. And did they ever ask for it? No. But it just comes with the job. There's a lot of kids out there. There's a lot of people who like Dak Prescott, who like the Cowboys, who like the fact that there is a black starting quarterback for the Cowboys coming out and talking about mental health issues. There's a lot of people out there who could hear that. And they could go, well, if Dak struggles with it, then that means anyone could struggle with it. Because there's people out there who probably think Dak is superhuman. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just too old. I'm old enough to know he's not superhuman. But there's kids out there who probably look at Dak as like a superhero, and they think to themselves, if he goes through it, that means anyone can. And that's the kind of that's why people should wrap their arms around him and around the fact that he came out and talked about it. Because it's not just that Dak is an athlete talking about it. He's also a male athlete. And we all know, or at least we should all know, that mental health issues when it comes to men have also been very, very stigmatized. I thought Charlemagne the God had a really good quote. And he said something along the lines of, men are taught to apologize for their weaknesses. Men are taught to apologize for like showing emotion, whereas women are taught to apologize for showing strength. And I thought never been truer words spoken. I thought that was a great quote. And it's true. When you're a man, in America, especially in America, you are taught to, not show emotion, don't cry, don't show these things. That's saved for women. But Dak comes out and he says, no, I was battling depression. I was battling these things. And I didn't quite know I didn't quite know what I was experiencing until I talked about it with some people. I applaud Dak for coming out and talking about it. I really do. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, for one, because I think it's very, very important, as I've already stated, I think it's very, very important for athletes to be open about these kinds of things. Whether it's Dak Prescott, or on the NBA side of things, Kevin Love, or Paul George, or whoever wants to come out and talk about depression, who wants to acknowledge it is a real thing and talk about their struggles with it, I think it's very, very important. Even musical artists have talked about their struggles. And I don't feel like it shouldn't take an athlete, it shouldn't take somebody who's famous, who has a lot of money to talk about something like depression to make people understand it, but sadly it does, because it's been for so long such a taboo subject that if someone who they might deem more important than them, or more powerful than them, richer than them, whatever it is that you want to describe it as or characterize it as, if that person doesn't come out and basically relate to them and talk about how they're dealing with the same thing, then that person will never open up about it. They'll never talk about it with anybody. They'll just keep it inside, and then the worst could come, and nobody wants that to happen. It's terrible, and as someone, for me personally, someone who has battled with depression throughout his life, I think everyone should get the help that they deserve. Now, not everyone's method for getting help is the same. Everyone handles things a bit differently. Some people don't need to go to therapy. Some people do. Some people have different ways of handling it. And at the end of the day, it's just about finding the method that helps you the best. Skip Bayless. Many of you probably know that name. Many of you probably watch Skip Bayless. I do. I watch him or listen to him about 5 times a week, because I like Undisputed. I like him and Shannon. I think they're a great duo, and I think it's a great show. Skip ended up facing the ire of the internet, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever people can post. Someone had something to say about Skip Bayless. In fact, millions of people had things to say about Skip Bayless. Because Skip Bayless is a diehard Cowboys fan. He loves Dak, but he loves his Cowboys even more. And Skip Bayless, he took what Dak said to a place I didn't even know you could really take it. I honestly, I didn't expect him to say this. Now, granted, on this day, I didn't wake up in time to watch Undisputed. I didn't wake up in time to watch it. I missed it. I was gonna have to catch the podcast later. And I go on Twitter when I wake up, and I see all these people are saying Skip Bayless needs to apologize to Dak. And I'm thinking to myself, what on earth did he say? And then I see a clip of what he had said posted, and it blew my mind. Now, I do not have the exact quote in front of me, but I'm going to do my best to summarize what he said. I'm going to be as accurate as possible because I'm about being fair, and I do not want to just make Skip Bayless sound like a bad guy. So essentially, this is what he said. He starts off his quote by saying that if people want to call him insensitive for his point of view, then they can go ahead, but they need to understand he has the utmost sympathy for people who battle real clinical depression, and he feels like they should go and get the help that they deserve. Okay, great, awesome. He then goes on to talk about Dak Prescott and how he was saying that he was struggling with depression early during COVID. He made very sure to specify that he's talking about that particular part of it, that he was battling with depression early during COVID. So not after his brother's death, nothing like that. He made sure to be very specific about during the early stages of COVID. Skip goes on to say, he doesn't feel sympathy for Dak in the fact that he came out and talked about it. Because he's the quarterback of America's team. He's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And he needs to go out there and lead men. And he is concerned that because Dak showed weakness, he's concerned with his ability to lead men. Because what if he goes out there and the player hits him and they knock him down to the ground, and then the player looks at him and goes, "Hey Dak, how'd that make you feel? Do you feel depressed? Hey Dak, you feeling upset? You feel okay?" Basically, Skip says, first off, he says that Dak showed weakness. I disagree strongly. I don't think Dak showed any weakness. But essentially, he doesn't feel sympathy for Dak because of his job and because of what it entails. What Skip said, in my mind, is the problem with the stigmatism around mental health, around things like depression. To tell Dak that because of his job, he shouldn't go public with it, and that he should have kept it within house, and he should have dealt with it himself away from the media, and he shouldn't have been open about it, I think is insanity. Again, I will reiterate this point. Even though athletes, actors, singers, even though they did not ask anybody to make their words mean more to people, it does. It does mean more. So when anyone famous comes out and talks about mental health or like a charity or politics, whatever it might be, their word just carries more weight. For Dak Prescott to come out and talk about this, I already know, helped a lot of people feel more secure about themselves. It is not weakness to acknowledge you have issues. It is not weakness to acknowledge you need help. That shows the ultimate strength, especially as a man in America, to acknowledge you are battling mental health issues, that you're feeling a little bit more emotional, your emotions are going a bit awry, given the stigmatism that's been around it for men for, God knows how many years. That shows the ultimate strength. And his point about players possibly using it against him on the field. Let me be very clear. If any player was to use Dak's mental health against him on the field of play, just to get some kind of psychological advantage, first off, that player is scummy. Let me go ahead and say that. That player is scummy. I would hope that would get out to the media, and I'd hope they'd have to own up to what they said, because I think that'd be just terrible. In athletes throughout history, in any game, they've always tried to figure out some kind of an edge to get over their opponent. I have no doubt there might be somebody out there who'd think about saying something. But I feel like, at least, especially with today's day and age, given the time that we're in, I would hope and I would think that people would be a bit more aware to not go there. Because mental health is nothing to joke about, it's nothing to use against anybody, it's a real serious thing, and I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't have at least one family member who's battling something. It is ridiculous to think otherwise. Skip Bayless, I believe, should apologize to Dak. Now, the next day, he came out, and he, in some kind of backwards way, he kind of apologized, kind of didn't. The words "I'm sorry" never came out of his mouth. He more, if anything, just kind of clarified his comment on what he actually meant. And he doubled down on saying that if anyone struggles with depression, they do believe that he should come out, if anyone struggles with it, they should get help. Fox Sports 1 came out and they issued a statement saying they applaud Dak, they applaud him coming out and talking about it, they spoke to Skip and about how his comments were seen as insensitive, blah blah blah. Nonetheless, I kind of have a question for Skip Bayless. Does he know that there have been many athletes in history that have committed suicide? I'm going to name one athlete who committed suicide not too long ago. Well, I guess, maybe, I don't know, depending on, I guess, what you think a long time is, nearing 10 years ago, who committed suicide, and it's documented he struggled with clinical depression. Rick Rippon. Hockey player who killed himself back in 2011. Documented, struggled with clinical depression. And I don't like getting into this match. I don't like getting into a battle of, well, my issues are worse than yours. Oh, well, your depression isn't like my depression. Look, Dak, he didn't say he struggles with clinical depression, nothing like that. He said it kind of came on because of COVID, because he didn't like what was going on this year, the social distancing, having to stay inside, not being able to be around people. It was getting to him. So I don't want to get into this conversation of my issues are worse than yours. Depression is depression, mental health is mental health. Let's not get into that conversation. Instead, let's just hear what Dak said. Let's thank him for being honest about it. Ask him if he's okay. And let's just hope that he starts to get better. This has been a very rough year for Dak. Because on top of experiencing depression even before his brother committed suicide, his brother then committed suicide. And he still has another brother. But especially for Skip to question his toughness, to question whether or not he can lead men, did Skip forget Dak lost his mother when he just started playing college football? If I remember correctly, I think his mom passed before she ever saw him, it was either before she ever saw him play a college game, or I know she hasn't seen him play in the NFL, so I mean, that's what it could be, but if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think she ever even saw him play a college game. And that was at a young age. To question Dak's toughness, to question whether or not he's made of the right stuff, doesn't make any sense to me. It perpetuates a terrible narrative that should have never even been a narrative in the first place. And I think he needs to apologize. I think he should apologize to Dak. I want to commend Dak for coming out and talking about it. I think it's an important interview. I think it's an important thing to discuss, especially as an athlete, as a person who was in the spotlight. You are the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. The camera's always going to be on you. You get all those commercials. You get all all the big sponsorships. That's what comes with being a Cowboy. People listen to what you have to say. And I just want to say, I applaud Dak. And I don't think he's the only athlete who is experiencing this right now in the world. I've also named two other guys, Kevin Love, Paul George. They both came out and they talked about it. Paul George, he stated he's been experiencing depression in the NBA bubble because he's been away from his family for so long. You can't leave. It's kind of where you're stuck. And he was experiencing some feelings that he wasn't too familiar with. I think there's other athletes who could probably admit the same thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the next couple weeks or whatever for this season, or just, in the near future, I wouldn't be surprised if more athletes come out and talk about the same exact thing. It's normal. This is a normal thing that people go through. And what Skip Bayless said really missed the boat, even though I understand what he was trying to say. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong topic to attempt to relate it to. I just don't think it holds any water. But anyways, coming up next, let's actually talk about some football. Texans, Chiefs. I want to talk about some of the things that I take away from that game. It was a good first game. I liked the product, and I have some takeaways that I want to discuss with you guys. That coming up next.
Listen up, sports bettors. This is Bryson Ethan here to tell you about our favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. We only endorse one sports book, and that is BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid.
That's right, Bryce. You need a sports book that offers everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. So call today at 1-800-MY-BET-US. That's 1-800-MY-BET-US, and they will walk you through getting started. Nobody in the industry gives better bonuses or bigger bonuses than BetUS. Join now, mention GSMC, and you get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. We bet at BetUS, and so should you. So join BetUS today. That's BetUS.com, or call 1-800-MY-BET-US, mention GSMC, and get 150% in bonuses on your first deposit.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about Dak Prescott opening up about depression. Again, I want to commend Dak for doing so. I think it's great that he did. I think more people in positions of power and influence should come out and talk about these things. I understand that it can be really difficult to talk about, which is exactly why I want to commend Dak, because there are still people out there who do view mental health issues as a sign of weakness, when I don't think it is. I think it's normal. I think it's something that everybody, at least at some point in time in their life, does deal with. Dak obviously kind of stated these are feelings he had never felt before until he felt them. And he didn't quite know what exactly it was until he talked to someone about it. So again, I want to commend Dak, and I want to say, Skip Bayless, you need to apologize to Dak ASAP, because what you said is insensitive as hell, and it was not warranted, and I just think it was wrong. I just think you were wrong in this situation. Again, I understand what Skip was trying to say, but wrong place, wrong time, wrong subject, and we will leave it at that. But Texans Chiefs. They started the season, opened the season on Thursday. I loved the game. It felt so good to just be able to sit back and watch some football. So let's go ahead and talk about it from a product standpoint, just from how it watched. It was very interesting seeing a relatively empty stadium, but they did have some cardboard cutouts in there, mixed with people. It made some of the sections look a bit more filled. There were obviously some of those areas where the camera did pan to it and you could see how little fans were there. But all in all, from a sound perspective, it was very nice. I really didn't have too much of a problem with it. It was different, it was different from a standpoint that the Chiefs Stadium is usually pretty loud. You hear that chant that they do. The crowd gets really into it, especially when the opposing offense is on the field. They are deafening, and you just didn't hear that. While you did hear the cheers, you did hear some of it, you didn't really hear a whole lot. It was very faint. It wasn't loud enough to really impact the offense. And so that's why when I've seen some people talk about the competitive mismatch, and I have talked about it myself, I do believe there will be some form of a competitive mismatch. But for some of these games, I mean, when the crowd isn't there, to just be deafening, especially in a stadium like that, when the offense can actually go out there and they can hear everything, how much of a competitive mismatch does it really create? That is a question I do have. But nonetheless, let's get into some of the takeaways I took from the game. Number one, Andy Reid's face shield was ridiculous. As the game went on, it got foggier and foggier, and I saw a bunch of memes come out about how Andy Reid, he doesn't even need to see the game. He can just call the plays and it's fine. But from a serious standpoint, when it comes to the Chiefs as a whole, they looked kinda how I expected them to, but I honestly didn't think Mahomes played too great. I don't know if anyone necessarily thinks Mahomes played a great game. I mean, what did he do? He threw for 3 touchdowns, threw for a couple 100 yards, but all in all, I didn't think he played too great. I thought he threw a lot of balls high, made his receivers actually work to get the ball. He threw a couple of short passes and he threw the ball high in the air, so the receivers had to actually jump for it instead of just kind of driving it to them. I thought he missed some guys open. I didn't think he played too great of a game, and if you look at Pro Football Focus, they actually graded Mahomes lower than they did Watson. And I think what was kind of interesting is the Chiefs have historically, with Mahomes, been a team that throws more than they run. During this game, they ran more than they threw it. Now, whether it was just because it was week 1 and it was the Texans and they saw they could take advantage of them on the ground, I don't know, but it was a bit of a different game plan. Maybe they saw that Mahomes didn't exactly have it. Maybe they just wanted the game to get over with. I have no idea. But when it comes to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the last pick in the first round, a pick that many people thought was going to fit perfectly into the Kansas City offense, a guy who could catch the ball as well as he runs it. They didn't even need to throw the ball to him for him to be effective. But I want to go ahead and temper everybody, because a lot of people are thinking that Edwards-Helaire is going to be the next great running back. Let me be very clear. I think he had a great game, but when you look at the next-gen stats, you can see where the majority of his numbers came from. The Texans played a light box a lot throughout the game. And when facing a light box, he had 10 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. Keep in mind, he had 25 for 138. So that means outside of his 10 carries for 96 yards against a light box, the remainder of the game, when he was facing a loaded box, he had, 15 carries for, 15 carries for 42 yards. That's not great. So when he faced a light box, he took advantage of it. But when he faced a loaded box, he did not. 15 carries for 42 yards. Not the greatest in the world. But he had a really, really decent game for a rookie. It was a good first showing. I don't want to condemn the guy. It was his first NFL game. I thought he played great. I just don't want people to think that he was just dominating the entire game. He took advantage of light boxes like he should. Against loaded boxes, he didn't do as much. And I think for the game, I think he had 92 yards or something after contact. He had a good game. I know some people probably think I'm being a downer. I'm just trying to temper expectations. I'm just trying to put everything into context because I think he had a good game. But I think when you look at the next gen stats, it's not as spectacular as it may seem. When it comes to the Chiefs' defense, I thought their defense played great. outside of giving up that first touchdown to the Texans, they shut out the they shut out the Texans for 2 straight quarters. And then they gave up 13 in the fourth. And this is kind of that thing of, I'm not sure whether or not to give the credit to the Chiefs or condemn the Texans. I'm not sure which one to do. But to stay on the Chiefs before I get into the Texans, I guess all in all, I would say this. This Chiefs offense after that game should terrify people, because I did not think they were clicking on all cylinders, kind of as expected. Again, no preseason. It's been a very wonky offseason. I didn't expect them to click on all cylinders. They were clicking on, I would say, maybe 2.5 for this game. 2.5, not all 4. But the fact that they still outscored the Texans, what was it? 31-7 before that fourth quarter is insane. The fact that they outscored them it was 7-0 and then 7-7, and then all of a sudden I looked at the scoreboard and it was 31-7. That is insane. I remember I tweeted out, I went on Twitter and I said, I thought the Chiefs were going to win that game by 20. For a while I was looking pretty good, but then in the fourth quarter they let up and the Texans kind of got some of their stuff together and they closed the gap a bit, so my prediction was wrong, but for a little bit there, I was correct. I thought they were going to win by at least 20. Now to go ahead and get into the Texans. Deshaun Watson needs all the help he can get. He needs serious help. I thought Deshaun Watson did everything he could. But their first drive, I thought was terrible. Receivers couldn't catch the ball. Oh, Will Fuller, outside of his one drop, he had a pretty good game. David Johnson looked really good. And I guess you could say for 1 week, it looks like that trade was a really, really good trade. But I'm not going to say that. I think David Johnson had a good game against a team that gave him his single highest rushing grade for a game in his entire career. Pro Football Focus noted that is the best game he's had of his career, grade-wise, was against the Chiefs. So maybe that says more about the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't know if I can give the credit to the Texans' offensive line. That's kind of the part where I'm debating it, because their offensive line, here is how bad their offensive line was. The Texans' offensive line gave up 6 pressures in under 2 seconds. And they finished the game with a grade of essentially 60. It was 59.9 either way. And that's out of 100. So I mean, it was a D. You passed, you attended the game, but you didn't do much. You were there, you turned in enough assignments, I guess, to at least get a passing grade in high school, but all in all, you did not succeed, you didn't learn anything, you were just there. I thought Watson, he was running for his life. That's why the thing, when I say the Chiefs defense, I thought they played great. I thought their defensive line, I thought it played great. Chris Jones was eaten. Frank Clark was eaten. Those guys were wreaking havoc. But that Texans offensive line, my goodness, Laramie Tunsil, their second year tackle at the right tackle position. I mean, my God, they couldn't do anything to protect him. And then from the receiving standpoint, Kenny Stills couldn't do anything. Brandon Cooks couldn't do anything. Will Fuller was the only guy who did anything for them. All of the Texans receivers, I think, coming into the NFL, they all ran like 4.3. How did none of them get open? Throughout the entire game, these guys just were not getting open. For Brandon Cooks to finish the game with like 2 catches is ridiculous. Kenny Stills, I think he was targeted 2 times the entire game. Will Fuller, yeah, he had a good game. My question with him is just, how long is he going to be able to stay healthy? And even though he had a good game, he's not DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins, he took to Twitter after the game, and I forgot exactly what it is he tweeted. I think he tweeted out and said something like blessed or thankful, something like that. Basically, he was taking a shot at the Texans because he is so happy he's not there anymore. He is so happy to be gone from that team. Yeah, he tweeted out grateful. Everyone knows exactly what that means. Right after the game, tweeted that out. He knows what he escaped. And I just think this says a lot about Bill O'Brien. My takeaway is that Bill O'Brien seems to have screwed Deshaun Watson. Now, maybe it could just be it's game one rust. Let's just wait and see if the Texans receivers and the offensive line, they have some more play time together, they start to get it together a bit more. But this game, if that offensive line continues to play like that, Deshaun Watson is really going to struggle. Deshaun Watson is one of the leaders in the NFL when it comes to running himself into pressures. I think the top two quarterbacks like this past year when it came to running themselves into pressures were him and Kyler Murray. Some of these mobile guys, it's a benefit that they're mobile, but the problem is that they will also run themselves into defenders. They don't necessarily help their offensive line out all the time. And with this game in particular, the offensive line didn't help Deshaun, and Deshaun didn't really help them. They need to give him more time. Tunsil needs to play better. Their second-year right tackle, who had a really good rookie season, he needs to play better. The offensive line as a whole, they just need to play better. The receivers, they need to get open. Why are you running a 4-3? You're running a 4-3 for nothing, because then you get in the game, and you got bricks in your pocket. And so again, it's that thing, I don't know. Do I credit the Chiefs defense? Is the Chiefs defense actually just that good? Or is the Texans offense actually just that bad? I think Bill O'Brien, and this is why I said I think Bill O'Brien is going to be on the hot seat this season. Because when he traded DeAndre Hopkins, if you trade DeAndre Hopkins and you don't get a first round pick and like a second round pick, if you don't get 2 first round picks, instead you get a second and a running back in exchange for him, it's criminal. That's a fireable offense. Can you imagine if someone went up to Joe Montana and said, "Hey man, we're trading Jerry Rice because we need to pay you soon"? Can you imagine if you said that to him? Oh my God. That would have never flown. That would have never flown. You traded DeAndre Hopkins because you needed to at some point pay Deshaun Watson. You keep those two together. I have no doubt in my mind they could have paid both. And I think they also kind of looked at the fact that they needed to extend DeAndre Hopkins, and he signed an extension with the Cardinals, and it's not like he didn't shatter a bank. He didn't set some record-breaking deal. It was like a 2-year extension. Worth like $60 million. Or something like that. You couldn't pay him that? When they traded away DeAndre Hopkins, they traded away one of the top 3 receivers in the league. When it comes to fourth quarter overtime, DeAndre Hopkins is the highest graded receiver in the league, or at least he's top 3, according to Pro Football Focus. You traded a guy who has one of the best pairs of hands since Larry Fitzgerald and Chris Carter. You traded away a fan favorite in Houston, Deshaun Watson's favorite target, and I know there's people out there who say one receiver should not make that big of a difference, one receiver should not destroy an offense, but did you guys see that? Did you see that? That is how big of a difference DeAndre Hopkins makes. I thought Deshaun Watson did everything he could, running the football, trying to extend the plays, trying to find guys. He threw a couple balls where he put it only where the receiver could make a play. And they were just dropping passes. Kenny Stills, Will Fuller. I thought he threw some really good balls that his receivers just did not catch. And if this is indicative, I mean, hands don't necessarily get better. I mean, I know some receivers, sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. There are games where sure-handed receivers sometimes are drop machines. Odell Beckham, he's had some games. I know the playoff game, the one playoff game he's played in his career with the Giants, he was a drop machine that game. He couldn't really get open, and when the ball was thrown to him, when he was open, he was dropping it. Sometimes it happens. But for all 3 of your receivers, your 3 starting receivers, to all not be good, for all of them to struggle, and as much as Will Fuller had a good game, did Will Fuller make any big splash plays? The game was already, at least in my mind, out of hand by the time he was making those catches. By the time he was actually getting the yardage, I thought he was already kind of loose. I thought the game was already out of reach. So I don't know how much I'm going to really put stock into what he did. I'm not going to write the Texans off because I know the Jaguars are going to be a really bad team. I've come to that conclusion. The Jaguars are going to be a really bad team. Tennessee, they have perpetually been 9-7. So, I mean, I guess we'll wait and see if they can actually get to double-digit wins this year. But 3 straight years, they've been 9-7. The Texans, they've been able to win the division twice and win double-digit games the last 2 years, so I want to give them that kind of respect. You gotta dethrone the champion. We'll wait and we'll see really what the Colts are as the season progresses. But just all in all, I just didn't think the Texans had a good week 1 performance. It was not good. It looked rusty, and while there were other teams that did look rusty as well, that didn't necessarily perform great either, I mean, my God, the Texans defense could not do anything to the Chiefs offense, even when it was clicking on like 2.5 cylinders. Maybe that just says how good the Chiefs offense is. I would probably lean that way. That Chiefs offense is just that good. Andy Reid and Mahomes are just that good. But if this week 1 performance says anything about the Texans, it's going to be a long season. And this could potentially be Deshaun Watson's worst year. He might have to do the most work he's ever had for this team to win any games. The offensive line needs to be better. The receivers need to be better. Bill O'Brien needs to be better. Deshaun, he needs to be better. But it's going to be a collective effort. You never judge a team based off of one game. So, we will wait and see how the Texans look as the season goes on. But if this is indicative of anything, this is going to be a long season for the Texans, and it does not seem like it is going to end well. But anyways, coming up next, I'm going to talk about some of the fan reactions to the Chiefs and Texans showing of unity. I have a lot of thoughts about that, so I'm going to get kind of ranty here in the next topic. And coming up later, my final topic of the day, we're going to get into some of my takeaways from this NFL weekend, and some of the teams showed me some things that I was impressed with. Some of these teams were very, very underwhelming to watch, and so I'm going to get into some of that coming up later.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment got into the Texans and the Chiefs, talked about some takeaways from the game. All in all for the Chiefs, I think they played maybe about like 75% of what they normally are. This was not a usual game for them. They ran the ball more than they passed it, and yet still in the fourth quarter, it was 31-7. So the Chiefs, I think that should terrify the league. Even when they aren't playing their A game, even when Mahomes isn't exactly Patrick Mahomes, they can still blow you out. This Chiefs defense, maybe it's going to be super elite this season like it was last year. Maybe they just improved that much more. Maybe it's just the Texans offense. Maybe it's just the Texans defense. Because the Texans as a whole, I didn't think played a good game. Their offensive line, yikes. Their receiving core, yeesh. And their defense, oh my God, does it need help. Deshaun Watson was running for his life. He did everything it seemed like he could, threw guys open. They just didn't catch the ball. The protection was not adequate. That offensive line wasn't good going into the season, and it seemed like it only regressed and got even worse. Again, they allowed 6 pressures in under 2 seconds. So you snap the ball, 2 seconds later, you got players all around Deshaun Watson. And he made some Houdini-like escapes where he ducked some guys, got away from them, but there's only so much he can do. Again, I don't want to judge the Texans just based off of 1 week. A team during the first week of the season is not the same team once you get to about like week 5, week 6. The teams really do change and they start to pick up momentum, so we'll wait and we'll see. But if this week 1 says anything about the Texans, it's going to be a long year for this team. Excuse me. Anyways, before the game started, there is all the controversy revolving around the national anthem, right? What are these teams going to do? Well, the Texans decided to go ahead and stay in their locker room, whereas the Chiefs were on the field for both the African American, what's kind of called the Black national anthem, and the regular national anthem. I think I saw one player kneeling on the sideline, and I think it might have been Frank Clark. I don't exactly know. I couldn't really see who it was, but I saw one player kneeling. Everyone else was standing. Some people had, had locked arms. Some people had hands on shoulders. Some people did have hands on hearts. It all kind of depended. It wasn't a big deal to me. But then, of course, the Texans, that when they did come out, there were a lot of boos. As expected, one, it is the visiting team. They're going to get booed normally anyways, but I think also the fact that they stayed in the locker room didn't sit well with some people. It's whatever. But I have a problem. So, they decided to do a moment of silence for a showing of unity. It all has to revolve around the unjust killings of black men in America at the hands of police, racial inequality, racism in general. They were trying to do a showing of unity because at the end of the day, it's about we are all in this together. That's kind of the slogan. We're in this together. Together, we can accomplish anything. And when I was listening to the game itself, I thought I heard some booing. And I wasn't quite sure what I was hearing. I wasn't sure if it was just yelling during it, just some people just yelling for the sake of yelling, but I thought I heard some boos. So I went to Twitter, and I see some of the reactions. I see some other people are posting saying, does anyone else hear booing? And then it was after the game that you hear guys like J.J. Watt say he was really disappointed in the booing. There were members of the Chiefs that took to Twitter saying they heard booing, and they thought it was disgusting. F racist. There was a Chiefs player, he didn't even play in the game. I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head, but he took to Twitter, and he just started flaming people who are Chiefs fans. He started flaming people, calling them racist, because they were booing during this moment of silence, during this moment of unity. It had nothing to do with the flag. It had nothing to do with the troops. It had everything to do with just showing we are in this together for one common goal. And I ended up seeing this one Chiefs fan's video. He took a video during this moment of silence. He literally recorded himself booing the locking of arms, and he said something like, oh, I don't want politics in my sports. Boo, boo, I don't know politics, no politics. That is shameful, in my mind. That is so shameful. I do not want to hear anybody ever again bring up the flag when it comes to this. Never bring up the flag again. Clearly, this was never about the flag. If you have people literally booing a showing of unity, just standing up for Black Lives Matter, it had nothing to do with the flag. The Chiefs, they all stood. Except for one player I saw. They all stood for the anthem. The Texans, they just didn't even come out. And then just for a simple showing of unity, you had Kansas City Chiefs fans booing. And I think it's kind of ironic. Part of it's kind of funny, and then part of it's just really sad. Do they not remember that their quarterback is black? Patrick Mahomes has been very, very outspoken this offseason. He was a part of the video where all the NFL players, all the black NFL players were coming out and they were saying, I am Eric Gardner, I am Breonna Taylor, I am Ahmaud Arbery. I don't remember who Patrick Mahomes said that he was. But Patrick Mahomes is a person of color. He is a black man in America. And you had Chiefs fans booing this moment. It had Literally nothing to do with the flag. And I don't think it has anything to do with politics. Human rights, equality, has nothing to do with politics. And if you think that a section of people wanting equal rights, that a section of people wanting to be treated like everybody else, if you think that is political, I think that says a lot about you. But hearing the booing, listening to it, it saddened me. I think is really what I kind of have to, what it comes down to. It just really made me sad. And it really showed me that the issue, it isn't the flag. It is not the troops. It is none of that. All this moment was about raising awareness to racial inequality in America. And Chiefs fans booed it. Not all of them, but enough did. In a crowd of, 17,000 people, it was loud enough to where I could hear it on the TV. And then videos were being posted of it online. And yet some people try and say it wasn't booing, some people tried to justify it. There's no justifying it. It was booing. And they were booing the moment because it supported Black lives. Because it was trying to raise awareness to racial inequality in America. That's what this was. No more. No less. These people, they showed their true colors. I don't want to hear anything about the flag. It ain't about the flag. It's about Black lives. And it's about raising awareness. Because here's the thing, right? The NFL, they have Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And where they rep, Susan G. Komen? And they all rep the pink bow on them. You don't hear anybody complain about that. Everyone, they join together and they say F cancer. And everyone supports it. They're raising awareness for that because it can affect anybody. Black Lives Matter pertains to one group of people. And even though Black Lives Matter, people who support it, they've talked about how, they want people of all race to join them. They want people of all colors to join them because it only makes the fight that much stronger, and I completely agree. Ultimately, what is in the word? What's in the phrase? Black. In the other, it's breast cancer awareness. It affects everyone. And so everyone can get behind it. But when it comes to Black Lives Matter, it mainly pertains to one group of people. And not everyone can get behind that. Especially because of the group of people it pertains to. I'm gonna get real with y'all. I'm gonna get real with you guys. It's disgusting. And they showed their true colors. And whether or not, some people, they don't want to use the R word, right? They don't want to call them racist. I will. It's racist. Even if they don't realize, some people out there, they don't realize they're racist. Sometimes it's the microaggressions, it's the little subtle things, like, you're walking by a black person on the street and you move a bit farther to the side. You hug your purse a little bit more, you walk to the other side of the street. It's stuff like that. Some people, they don't even realize they do it until you point it out to them. So, and I've seen some of the reactions as the days have gone on, and you have Baker Mayfield, he comes out and he basically reneged on his original stance and how he was saying that he was going to kneel during the anthem, and he doubled down on it too. When people were asking him, "Are you really going to kneel?" and he said, "You're damn right, I'm going to kneel." He then came out with a statement talking about how he sees how divisive it is and how it's only going to cause more problems than it's worth, so he's going to stand and it's his decision. Look, I mean, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, but I think Baker is afraid of backlash. I think that's what it came down to. I think for him, it showed he's afraid of the backlash, and he doesn't want to experience that during the season. He's already under enough pressure, and so he didn't want to experience any more if he decided to, in fact, kneel. Of course, the Dolphins, they came out with a statement saying they're just not even going to come out during the anthem. They're going to stay in their locker room. It is a team decision, and they just aren't going to take part in it. And the Texans themselves, they did it. They weren't going to take part in it. And I think that is probably, if anything, that might be the best way to avoid everything altogether, because you're not kneeling and you're not standing. You're just in the locker room. And that is the way it originally used to be. But I think if a team is going to do that, I really think you gotta get the other team to be with you. especially if you're at their stadium, because if you're in the locker room and they're out there during both anthems, as soon as you come out, you're going to get like what the Texans got, which is you're going to get booed out of the stadium. And obviously, there's not enough fans, anymore, I think, for it to be deafening, to maybe really affect the team. But it's just a mess. It is just a mess, and I just don't feel like it should be. It was just really disappointing to see. It was really, really disappointing to see. It was sad. But I think it just really showed all that talk about the flag and about disrespecting the troops was baloney. None of it was real. Maybe for a few people it was, but at this point in time, no. At this point in time, no. It doesn't fly anymore. That excuse, it just doesn't fly anymore. Don't say it's political. Don't say it's about the flag. Any team that does a showing of unity and that gets booed for it, at this point, you know what those people are. They're racist. They don't like the fact that athletes are raising awareness for black lives. They don't like the fact that they're trying to fight for equality for black people. I think about Colin Kaepernick. I think about Eric Reed. I think about Kenny Stills. I think about all the people that did try to back Colin Kaepernick at the beginning of his protest back in 2016. That tried to have his back, that supported him, the people that understood what he was trying to say. And I just look at things now, 4 years later, the fact he's still not in the league, and even though more of America, if not the majority of America, is now with him, and they understand what his point was, there's still this section of people who just don't, I almost don't want, I don't know if I want to say, do they not get it, or are they on purpose and not understanding it? Like, are they just being willfully ignorant? I don't know what to call it. I really don't. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna end this segment a little bit early. Give me more time to talk about some actual football subject, because at this point I'm just repeating myself. At this point it's making me upset. So we're gonna go ahead and end this a bit early. But anyways, coming up next, final topic of the day, we're gonna get into some of my NFL takeaways. Gonna talk some Bengals, talk some Bills, talk some Seahawks. Gonna talk about some of the things that I saw from teams across the board, some of the teams I like, some of the things I didn't like, and yeah, I know that was a bit of a down topic, a lot more serious. Again, I didn't really go into this. I didn't go into the show wanting to talk about such serious stuff. I wanted to just talk football, but unfortunately, that's just not the season. As Pete Carroll said, this is the season of protest. And it made itself very clear during week 1 that is exactly what it is going to be. But anyways, we will get into some NFL games coming up next. Final topic of the day. Thank you for tuning in.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about fans that were booing during the Chiefs Texans showing of unity. I do not want to get too into it again because it really does just make me upset. But It's very sad. It's very sad. It kind of proves that this was never about the flag. This is about fighting for equality for black people. And if you want to disagree with that, then go ahead and disagree. But I can see it. Most of America can see it. Anybody with common sense, I feel, can see it. And, it's just very, very unfortunate. I understand that some people want to use sports as an escape, but I'm sorry. I don't know. That's just not a viable excuse. That's not a viable excuse to me. It's not a viable excuse, to boo a showing of unity and the fighting of equal rights, to try raising awareness for discrimination in America. The NFL raises, awareness for things like breast cancer, and people don't have a problem with it because it affects everybody. Obviously, with Black Lives Matter, it mainly pertains to one specific race, and, not everybody can relate to it. So, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But it's just very, very unfortunate. But anyways, so, Monday Night Football hasn't happened yet, so I can't really go off of those games. When I talk about this, I am mainly going off of just Sundays and Thursdays games. So with those in the books, here are some of the takeaways that I had from week 1. Number 1, the Seahawks look like a completely new team. They actually passed the ball way more than they ran it. They ran the ball outside of Russell Wilson, I think 17 times, and they threw it 35. He had as many incompletions as he did touchdown passes, which was 4. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful game, and as a Seahawk fan, I cannot tell you how weird it felt to watch a game and not once want to pull out your hair because the offense, for whatever reason, just kept running the football. It was very, very different. There was that. Tampa Bay is off to a bit of a rough start. They did not look great. They had their spots, they had their moments, but all in all, they struggled like I thought they would. Cam Newton is back, and I think that the league is going to really, really regret having Bill Belichick, of all people, have Cam Newton, because he looked like himself, and the offense that they're running, the kind of football that it seems like they're going to play, it does once again look like they could be successful this year. Burrow looked better than I thought, and I guess before I say any more, I do want to say this. I'm going to do kind of a general overview of Sunday and Thursday of this set of games. Obviously, with Monday having the Monday games haven't happened yet for me. So I'm basically going to do a general overview in my next podcast. I will talk a bit more in depth about what I thought about certain games. This is just going to be a general overview of some of the takeaways I had, the little tiny things that I noticed, different things like that. So do not expect me to really do a breakdown of Burrow or of Russell Wilson and what I thought about the game as a whole, different players, things like that. I will save that for my next podcast. But anyways, moving on. But yeah, Burrow looked better than I thought he would. The Chargers kind of looked like a mess. They did not look anything like I thought they would. I don't know if that's the Bengals doing it to them or if it was the Chargers, but once again, they also got snake bitten by injuries. This team is just perpetually cursed. Stadiums with no fans looks really, really strange. It really does look strange. And then some of the shots I can see, I don't know, they kind of seem to go in a bit tighter, like they're trying to cut out the stadium. I know, I think they've done it, they were doing it a bit more with, I believe with baseball. They did it a bit more, but there's certain shots where you just can't hide it. So it's kind of the same thing with the NFL. Certain shots, you just can't really hide it, and it looks strange. I wish that more teams would put things in the stands, would put cardboard cutouts. It looks goofy. I get it. It looks really interesting and kind of funny to see The Rock and the Queen sitting next to each other. But it's just something. It makes so the stadium doesn't look so empty, but it is what it is. The PA system pumping in noise, cheering, booing is, I guess for some of the games it works, and then for some of the games it just seems dumb. For the Saints game in particular, I hated all of it. I thought the cheering never really seemed to come in on time, and the booing, when they actually did play booing, didn't really work in the moment. It just all seemed off. It didn't seem authentic. It seemed more like a charade. I don't know, like a gimmick. And I just didn't like it. I almost feel like it'd be better if they just stuck to playing music, in between the snaps and everything. Just play music whenever you do, when you normally do, and just leave the cheering out of it. Just wait for the fans to actually come back into the stadium. Don't pump in the noise. I just don't think it's necessary. Can I say that the Jags are better with less talented players? I rode the Jags wagon for so long in so many podcasts when all these articles were putting them as the worst team in the league and they're going to get the number 1 overall pick. I kept saying, I don't know why people think they're going to be so bad. I don't understand. Their offense, if anything, should be really potent. And Gardner Minshew, can we stop acting like he was bad his rookie year? He was literally the highest graded rookie quarterback last season. And I guess, I'll save that point for my final point. Can I say that the 49ers offense got a bit stagnant? The Cardinals ended up winning. I don't know what that was all about, but the Cardinals look really good. Nuke Hopkins, yeah. I'm sure Deshaun Watson really wishes that he had him back. Yeah, the Jets, terrible. What is wrong with the Jets? The Browns, oh my god. I knew that week 1 was going to be a difficult game for them going up against Baltimore. I expected Baltimore to put up points and to still look really good, but 6 points? And it was a touchdown. Because they missed a field goal. 6 points with all that firepower. All of that firepower. It is incredible. The Colts, yeah, they lost to the Jags. That seems terrible. I don't know what that was all about. Atlanta had 3 receivers with over 100 yards. I mean, there was so much going on. And I guess my final takeaway is, Jesus, did I miss football. I missed football so bad. I've said it once. I've said it probably 6 times. Probably more. 2020 has been one hell of a year. And not necessarily in a good way. It has been so stressful. It has taken a real toll on my mental health and many other people's mental health. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, up and down and sideways and all around. It's just been wild. It felt really, really good to be able to sit down with my family and just watch sports. It felt so great. Now, I guess my ultimate takeaway is I do not want to overreact to week 1. I really don't. Because there were some firsts, and I do not believe that this kind of stuff is going to be repeatable, just simply because I hadn't seen it before. There's some things I do believe that can be repeatable. There's certain teams I do believe that are going to play better. There's certain teams I think that maybe played a bit more over their skis. But like some of the takeaways that I do not believe are going to happen again, or if they do happen again, then it is just going to be, it'll just be, it's a new season, it's a new dawn, it's a new player. Josh Allen, he threw 46 times. I think that's also his career high, and it was the first time he eclipsed 300 yards in his career. It's the first time he hit it, first time he eclipsed it. And I don't really know if I can put much stock into it because it was against the Jets, and the Jets just looked abysmal for most of the game. I don't care about what their final score was, them almost kind of, you could say, closing the gap. I just didn't think it was even close. They were dominated the entire game. Sam Darnold looked terrible, and the Jets as a whole just looked terrible. I think that this team is going to be blown up by the end of the season. So I don't really know if I can put much stock into it. If Josh Allen does it again, then I guess it's a new dawn. Josh Allen, I guess, is just a better quarterback now. Maybe the addition of Stephon Diggs is actually working just as they hoped it would. They now have, technically, you could say, 3,000-yard receivers from this last season. We'll see what happens as their season goes on. 5 teams finished with their quarterback as their leading rusher. It was Seattle, the Ravens, the Bills, the Cardinals, and the Patriots. And the Patriots attack, I think, can really work, and that Cardinals offense, I think, should really, really scare people. The Seattle letting Russ cook. That had never happened before. It just doesn't really happen. When it does happen, it's a rarity, and Seattle fans are, thankful. I don't know if I want to get my hopes up too much, but Jesus. I mean, really, Jesus. They actually let Russ cook. It seemed like Twitter and Instagram, it seemed like social media finally got to the Seahawks and finally convinced them that Russell Wilson was good. Again, the Browns, 6 points. I don't know, is that going to happen again? I don't think so. So I just want to say, do not overreact to week 1. Do not overreact. I don't believe, no team now is going to be the same as they are in 5 weeks. By the time these teams get to week, game 5, game 6, game 7, they will be very different. And at that point in time is going to be when we can really say, okay, this is what the team is, right? Jacksonville, There's a lot of people out there who think, oh, see, look, the Jags, they're not tanking. Did you see how well Minshew played? See how well the offense played? No, look, I think the Jags are doing the Miami version of tanking. I think they're gonna play hard. I think they're gonna play their guts out. But I think it's mainly because they want to set a new tone, they want to set a new culture. Will the head coach make it through the season? I have absolutely no idea. And again, it's just kind of the thing of, is it more the Colts, or was that the Jacksonville's defense? Or are they just playing that difficult? I don't really know what to say. Or is it just that it's week 1? Get a load of some of these scores. Some of these scores are just ridiculous, and they were games I had no idea would end up the way that they were. The Packers and the Vikings, 43-34. The Packers had 3 receivers. Devontae Adams was Devontae Adams. But then they had Lazard and Valdez-Scantling both almost get 100 yards. And Valdez-Scantling had a few drops. He probably could have had 100 yards. But I did not expect to see that. Washington against the Eagles, that defensive front had 8 sacks against the Eagles. Remember when I did my top 10 list of the players that were lost due to injury in the offseason? 2 of the players I had in the top 10 were Brandon Brooks and Andre Dillard. And it is clear, the Eagles, against any fierce pass rush, unless these guys all of a sudden get a lot better, or unless Brandon Brooks and Lillard come back from their season-ending injuries, this is going to be a long year for Philadelphia, and this is going to be a year where Wentz probably gets beat up. He could get hurt again. I don't want that to happen, but it seems like it could. The Ravens were the Ravens, but the Browns, 6 points. I don't know if I can... Is that going to happen again? I don't think so. The Raiders and the Panthers, you got Raiders fans out here saying, look at our offense, Derek Carr, yeah, this is... Both these teams have terrible defenses. Both of them are all offense, no defense, and even when it comes to the Panthers, I don't think they're going to be a team that perpetually puts up 30 points. The Raiders, offensively, again, another team, I don't think they're going to be able to do this. Against bad teams, these are going to be teams, especially no defense having teams, those will be games where these teams score points. Against any other team, I think they're going to really struggle. The Raiders last year did the same thing. Teams that had bad defenses, Derek Carr looked incredible and the offense put up points, but against teams that actually had any resemblance of a defense, they seem to completely disappear. Same thing with the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey, he'll be Christian McCaffrey. Bridgewater, I like him. Again, like I said, I like Bridgewater, but I don't think that long term they're going to be able to do this throughout the season. The Bears, talk about a lucky victory. Literally, DeAndre Swift, or whatever the running back's name is, dropped a pass. Adrian Peterson looked incredible. There were very few teams that had very viable running games where it really looked like they can just run the football. They can just flat out run the football. And the Lions were one of them. Of course, the Chiefs, the Texans, the New England, they all seem like they can really run the football. Dallas, of course, with Zeke and their offensive line. Again, I go to like the Cardinals and the 49ers play calling. Their offense got really stagnant. I guess all in all, what I'm trying to say is just do not be a prisoner of the moment. Being a prisoner of the moment is going to really set people up for failure. We know a few things about this year. The Chiefs and Mahomes are going to be great. New England is always going to be well coached. They're going to go into every single game playing as hard as they can. They're going to go into every single game trying to take advantage of what your team can't do, and they're going to force you into mistakes like they did against Miami. They forced Ryan Fitzpatrick into 3 interceptions. You look at the Bengals. I think they're going to struggle all season. I do not believe they're going to have games this close. When it comes to Tampa Bay or Tampa Bay, whichever one you want to really go with, I think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve with this offense. It is a bombs away offense. Remember, I threw that stat out multiple times that quarterbacks in their first year with Bruce Arians typically lead the NFL in turnover-worthy plays. Every single time he has a new quarterback, they have led the league in turnover-worthy plays. What did Brady do against the Saints? He put the ball in harm's way repeatedly, and it got picked off twice. And while I think that eventually this offense will get clicking and they will be better and Tom Brady will eventually look more like the old Tom Brady, I just think we're going to see more of this, especially when they face really good defenses. They're not just going to be the 07 Patriots. It's not what this is going to be. I said going into the season, quarterbacks with a new offensive scheme, with a new offensive coordinator, whatever it might be, are going to have a hard time. And for some of the teams, that was exactly the case. The Browns, again, 6 points. What is that? 6 points? The Chargers, 16 points. They didn't look great on offense at all. The Bengals didn't look great. The Dolphins, they fired their offensive coordinator from last year. We saw what they did to New England last year in the final game when they actually put up over 30 points. They only mustered 11. Even the Patriots, they only put up 21. Now, while I think this is kind of going to be what they are, I do not believe they're going to be a very high-scoring team. I think that they're going to be a lot like they were last year. A lot of controlling the ball, more just moving the chains and playing really good defense. Opt-outs are going to affect the teams. I just think this season, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take more time for some of these teams to actually look like themselves. And what did kind of hold true is these quarterbacks who are in their second-year systems, not second-year systems, but who are in a familiar system, who have been in it for a while, looked good. Seattle, they look good. The Bears, they struggled in the first half because Trubisky is Trubisky, but Trubisky knows the system and they end up finishing with 27 points. The Falcons, they went for it a few times on fourth down. They didn't get it. They had some chances at some field goals that they just didn't take, but this offense is going to be clicking. Like I said, they had 3 receivers with over 100 yards. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray, he's familiar with the system. You saw what he did. The 49ers, look, I think they're going to go back to being a high-scoring offense, although I do think they need help at receiver. They put Deebo Samuel on IR. They lost Emmanuel Sanders. Tavon Austin, other guys were put on IR. They had to release some dudes. Some guys are on the practice squad or whatever. I think they're going to need some help, but I think the offense will be high-scoring. The Saints, they put up 34, and their offense, to me, didn't even look good. That was a lot with the help of Tampa Bay. The Packers, 43 points. The Vikings had 34 points. The Bills, 27 points. They all kind of look the same. The Ravens, familiar system. The Raiders had a familiar system, even though, again, I think it was just a product of Carolina having a bad defense. Some of the predictions that I and many other people have made when it comes to what teams are actually going to be successful this year is exactly how it turned out. If you come into this season with experience and with the same offensive system, you will be able to pick this up pretty quickly. This season is going to be a lot easier for you than some of these rookie quarterbacks. Like, I think at some point in time, Tua, given what I saw week 1, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's leash got cut short severely, and I think Tua is going to start a game sooner rather than later. I really do. I firmly believe that. All in all, I look at this NFL weekend and I have a few different takeaways. And number 1 is that I really miss football and I'm so glad it's back. And while other countries have been able to get full stadiums and have their fans back in, America is not in that position because Trump lied about the coronavirus. That was proven. Audio came out. He knew about it. He didn't say anything, so it's his fault. But nonetheless, this is what we've been dealt. And I'm just glad to see the athletes back out there being able to play this game. Again, selfishly, I wanted football back. I wanted to be able to watch something. I love the game. It's so fun for me. When it comes to the actual TV product, I think it could be better. It's not the NBA's, I guess, to put it that way. The NBA, they have really demonstrated you can play basketball. Like, if they continued to do it this way, I don't think I would be upset if the fans didn't come back. I don't think I'd really be upset. But when it comes to the NFL, the fact they are still in these big stadiums and there's nowhere else they could have really gone, I think they have shown that we need the fans. The fans are such a big part of the game when it comes to the cheering and the getting into it, the helping out the team, the distracting their offense, everything. They have shown that the fans are really, really vital for the product, for the on-TV product. So that was another takeaway I had. And then it makes me think about Monday Night Football because I'm really not sure what to expect. I don't know what to expect for today, right? The Steelers and the Giants. I would like to think going into the game, the Steelers should have this thing in the bag. Their defense should really, really perform well. But I don't know if I can bank on that. I don't know if Ben Roethlisberger is going to put the ball in harm's way. I don't know what their offense is going to do. And apparently, I don't really know exactly what the Giants are going to look like. Because, like I said, right, you take a look at teams like the Panthers. I did not expect the Panthers to drop 30 points. Who knows? The Giants, maybe it could just be that day. The Steelers' defense is a bit sluggish. They're just not out the gates like they should be. And maybe Daniel Jones can surprise us. Who knows? When it comes to Denver and the Titans, I would think going into the game, the Titans should be able to run the ball down their throat. Tannehill should be able to capitalize off of that with some play action passes, and another year of A.J. Brown, Corey Davis. That offensive line is still there. We'll see what they do without Jack Conklin, but Von Miller's no longer there. Bradley Chubb does come back, but he is not Von Miller. I just think, and there's a lot of questions, right? How does Drew Lock look? I would think a lot of people had Denver as a dark horse team this year. After some of the players that they've lost, some of the opt-outs that they've had, I don't know if I can bank on them to be a dark horse team. I think they could probably get completely dominated by Tennessee. I guess you just don't know. This is the COVID year. This is the protest year. This is the year where anything could really happen. I think that Tennessee's offense should still be good because it's another year of Tannehill. Tannehill got the full off season. Well, full off season. Quote, full off season as the starter. He went into the year knowing he was going to be the starter, whereas last year he didn't. So I would assume the offense should probably still be able to be good. I guess you just never know. You never quite know. 2020 is full of surprises. But I am so thankful there's a football season, and I cannot wait to talk about more of it with you guys. I'll see you all in the next podcast. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, everyone. God bless football, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.